Well, hello everyone, we're back. Yeah, I know it's been a while, but here we go. We're about to go on yet another road trip. So this one's going to be a little different. We're going to go through yet another one of those areas with supercharger networks, a little sparser than others, but don't worry, we've got plans. Now, it is quite possible that those plans may fail, and if that's the case, we have backup plans. Let's hope we don't have to use them. Anyway, to start things off, we need to punch in the address for the supercharger at Minor, Missouri. So let's go ahead and do that. It's predicting a 6% arrival. We'll see. We'll evaluate as we get closer to the Kudowa supercharger, but I think we can make it. And anyway, that sets us up for a longer break at Minor, Missouri, because we are actually going to have to do a 100% charge. Yes, it's that bad. The gap between superchargers is quite large. Anyway, let's get on the road. Well, I guess it wouldn't be a road trip video if I didn't get stuck in nasty traffic coming out of Nashville. And yep, here we are again. So, autopilot, take the wheel. All right, little pit stop here midway. So thanks to the magic of awful Nashville traffic, we're doing a lot better in terms of state of charge than the car was initially predicting, which is great. It means we can skip the stop in Kudowa, so we can go directly onto Minor, and then we have our long stretch after that. But before that, I've got to get something to fuel me up for the next 2.5 hours of driving. So, off to... Yep, there it is. All right, we're going to be on this charger for a while, so let's get plugged in and then we'll talk about what happens next. All right, so we have made it to Minor, Missouri. Very efficient drive, actually. We did much better than the route planner initially thought we would, which is great because that means we didn't have to stop in Kudowa. We pulled in at some state of charge. It was on your screen and I can't remember. The gap between here and Springfield is going to be a difficult one. There is no supercharging infrastructure whatsoever until we reach our destination, which is a hotel with destination charging. And there's no Chatamo options either. The only EV related things that show up on PlugShare are a couple RV parks and a car dealership that's about 30 miles away from here, so that is not that useful. If something does go completely wrong, we do have a backup option this trip that I hope stays in the boot, but if that's not the case, we do have a bailout. It's just a very slow one. So we're gonna let that go for a bit, and there is a Mexican restaurant here, so we're gonna go grab dinner, and hopefully by the time that happens, we'll be ready to continue. So right as my check came at the restaurant, it popped up ready to go. So let's get unplugged, let's get on the road, and on our 3-hour and 34-minute drive to our stop for the night. No, just kidding. We made it. We totally made it. All right, so we made it with 8%. Now, that's because we had a really efficient drive over here. Perfect EV driving conditions. Completely dry, temperatures in the upper 70s. Just everything worked for us to get here as efficiently as possible. And we turned in some pretty good efficiency numbers. So with that, we're going to plug into the charger here at the hotel, let it charge up overnight, and then that should take us all the way to our destination tomorrow. It's an 8 kilowatt charger. That's nice to have at a hotel for sure. We'll drop the charge limit to 90%, and when we wake up, we'll bump it up to 100, and off we go. So with that, we'll see you tomorrow. Hello everyone, we're back. It's the morning. We got a 96% state charge last night, which sets us up pretty good for our trip today. Now, trip planner does want us to stop in Joplin along the way for a very quick little top up, and we'll probably do that just because we're not going to have power when we get to our final destination. All we're going to have access to at our final destination is a 110 volt Edison plug, which isn't great. About 3 miles of range per hour, but it's something that should be enough for any in-town driving that we do. And then if I need to top up with the Wichita Supercharger, we can. And then when we leave, we'll probably top up at Wichita and then make the trip back. That's probably when we're going to need our generators, because the route back is going to be a little different. But anyway, with that, the first thing we have to do is we have to get some coffee in our system, and then we can proceed on to Joplin. Starbucks. Something kind of weird. We are 46 miles away from the Supercharger, and it's already got us preconditioning. So I think that's a new record for us. I guess we're at such a high state of charge, I don't know. And the battery is definitely cold from, sitting outside all night. Welcome to Joplin, Missouri. We pulled in with about 64% state of charge. Used a little more getting here, not the most efficient drive in the world, but that is fine because we have a V3 supercharger here. Now, as high as we are on the pack, there's probably going to be no noticeable difference between a V3 and a V2 supercharger. So let's get plugged in, and there is a nice little gas station and market here, so we'll have time to grab some more refreshments and all that while the car charges. Should be a pretty quick little stop here, small little plug and run. Not that bad. So 95 kilowatt, that's pretty decent speeds for this high in the pack, so we'll let that go for a little bit while we go refresh, and we'll be back. All right, we just hit 80% charge. Things are slowing down pretty dramatically at this point. It predicts we're going to pull into the Wichita Supercharger with about 5%, which should be fine given how efficient our driving has been so far. And then we'll pull into the Wichita, Kansas Supercharger and top up before we reach our final destination. So let's get unplugged and on the road. Well, we've made it. We pulled in at 15% state of charge. We went ahead and skipped the supercharger, so we're going to try and figure out how to charge up here. We may just have to disconnect the camper for a bit and charge off of that and go from there. Hey, look at that. We're plugged in. We disconnected the trailer. Say hi, Chris.
How's it going?
We disconnected the trailer, stalled that 50 amps, so we're going to stick some charge in here for a little bit and then reconnect the trailer when we're done. And in the meantime, since we have a couple of generators, we'll at least power one of the AC units off of it. Oh, I left that on.
Everybody's got to deal with it.
And like that, we are at the end of our week, which means you guys get to rejoin us for our trip back to Tennessee. With that, preparations are full underway, so let's get packed up and on the road. We're back in the car now. We charged to 90% last night off of just a Edison outlet on the side of the trailer. So we need to get the slides pulled in and off we go. Now, as we mentioned, this is going to be an interesting journey today because we are not going to follow the EV-friendly route where we go straight from supercharger to supercharger. We're going to be part of a larger, and that's a train. That is totally a train going by. Now, we are not going to be following... Now, we're not going to be following the... Now, we're not going to be following the... Now, we're not going to be following the EV-friendly route where we go from supercharger to supercharger. We could make it quite easily that way, as you saw in the first part of this video. But since we're going to be part of a convoy of non-electric vehicles, we need to follow what everyone else is doing, which means it's going to be a bit of an interesting stretch. And that being said, there's already a gap in the supercharger network to begin with. So without going way out of our way for charging, it's going to be interesting. We're probably going to have to generator charge at our overnight stop at least for an hour or two in order to make it to the next supercharger. But we'll see. Anyway, with that, let's get the trailer packed up and let's get ourselves on the road. So we pulled in at Joplin, Missouri, just about had a wham bam Tesla cam moment as a Mitsubishi just about backed into me. Luckily, the instantaneous torque of the Model 3 bailed us out of that one. So long drive, about 3 hours, and we pulled in at 18%, which should be perfect to get us some fancy V3 supercharging speeds. So let's get plugged in. Looks like we are holding right now at 248 kilowatt, which is properly fast V3 supercharging speed. So we're gonna go inside and grab something to snack on real quick, but definitely quite happy with the charging speeds. Oh, very good charging session today. We are just about done with this station and I just barely got it out of the store. Now there's one thing that we do need to do before we move on, and that's top up some windshield washer fluid, which it just happens to be one of the only things you can maintain yourself on a Tesla. At least that's the joke. Just arrived in Springfield. This is our longest charge this trip, so let's get plugged in and then we'll talk about what happens while we're waiting. So a couple things. This is kind of a weird setup here. The stalls normally are in pairs, so you have 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and etc. Here it goes 1, 2, 3, 4A, and then 1, 2, 3, 4B. So little confusing unless you slow down and think about it for a bit. We're charging at 145 kilowatt now, which is great version 2 speeds. But as we mentioned, we're going to be a while because there's that gap between here and Minor. Our stop's about 25-30 miles out of our way, which means that we are going to need more range than we actually have. Now that gives us a couple options. We could drive super slow and annoy everyone on the interstate, or we can look for alternative charging methods. It looks like there may be a level 2 charger where we're staying midway, but the reviews on PlugShare don't look all that great. We do have the generator with us. That's going to give us about 3 kilowatt charging. So we will need about 3 to 4 hours of that to make up for our detour. Anything speed-wise supercharging is going to be way faster than what we're able to do anywhere else. So we want to take on as much as we can here before we move along. We just completed our long charge in Springfield, Missouri. We charged to 98%. That is just shy of a completely full charge. It's not a great idea to do that, especially at a supercharger, and of course when you do, you should start driving immediately because you don't want that battery just sitting at 100%. Anyway, there is one thing we do need to do, and strangely enough, it involves getting gas. Yeah. I wonder if I still remember how to do that. I guess we'll figure it out together. All right, we're gonna make this quick. People are staring at me. I just pulled up to a gas pump in a Tesla. How's this thing? Oh my goodness. All right, we need to talk about how horrible that experience was. Everyone talks about how inconvenient EVs are. Has anyone considered how awful the user experience is on a gas pump? All the menus and stuff you have to jump through, it's crazy. Anyway, we're done with that horrible experience. Let's get on the road. Welcome to the Wages Brewery and Tap Room parking lot. They have let us park our trailer here overnight. So we'll have the trailer here and we'll charge the car up just a touch on generator and then run the trailer the rest of the night. And while that's going, we'll enjoy some live music and some local brews. Oh, you've got a locking device.
I do. Do you want to just stick it maybe up around the arm? Because that means...
All right. There are two things you need to know when you charge a EV off of generator. First things first, know what your generator is rated at. The number that the generator advertises is usually the peak wattage, not the continuous wattage. An EV charger will pull 100% of its load continuously until it's done charging. So you need to make sure that your charging system is set to match the continuous rating of your generator or less. In our case, our generators are rated for 2,000 watts peak and 1,600 watts continuous. By paralleling them together, that gets us By paralleling them together, that gets us 3.2 kilowatts of charging available. Now we're gonna run some of the trailer systems off of them as well, so that means that we're gonna allot about 2.5 kilowatt to vehicle charging, and the rest to running TVs and lights and things like that in the trailer. So, with that being said,
Sorry.
no, that's the second time that's happened. So the second thing you need to know.
Oh wow, that's pretty darn close. Wow.
Okay, so the second thing you need to know. Most generators, when they ship, have what's called a floating neutral, which means the neutral is not bonded to ground. This is good if you're going to connect your generator to your home system where neutral is already bonded to ground in the house. But if you just try and plug your EV directly into a generator without that bonding, your charger is actually going to throw an error. So we had to build a special adapter that just connects the neutral pin to the ground pin. And by the way, if you don't know what you're doing with that, that's probably not the best beginner thing to attempt. But here we go. Let's get our stuff hooked up and we'll be charging in a second. So you see here, the connector is not powered up, it's flashing red. That's because I did not connect my neutral to ground adapter. So I'm gonna disconnect this first. Then I'm gonna plug my adapter in. And look at that, now it's green. So it detects a valid ground, which means we can plug in. And those generators are about to spin up. You're gonna hear it here in a second. So the car is smart about how it charges. It gradually ramps up so that we don't overload anything. And now we're charging.
Getting dark fast.
Well, good morning. Welcome to West Plains, Missouri. So last night we charged a little bit on the generator. It was enough to basically cover our Sentry mode losses for the night. So we were able to run AC and other things like that in the trailer, which was fantastic. Now we need to make our way over to the Miner Supercharger. That is a ways away. It's a bit of a stretch. Route Planner thinks we're going to get there with about 3%, and that we need to stabilize 65 miles an hour. That's the speed limit, so we should be okay there. So let's stretch it on to Miner. We made it. 6% state of charge. That's better than predicted. And that's because we had some of the most efficient driving I've ever had. 220 watt hours per mile for that stint. It's spectacular efficiency, and a lot of that's helped by the fact that there wasn't a lot of wind. Temperature was nice outside, so we didn't really have to run climate control, and we took a lot of back roads, so we weren't going super fast. Well, with all that, let's get plugged in and get this thing charging. We're not going to spend a ton of time here. We're just going to hop to the next supercharger, which is in Kudowa. And then from there, that should be our last charging stop before we reach our destination. So it's kind of no secret, it's been a while since I've released a new video. And things have been kind of crazy this year. A lot of stuff's been going on, work and other things. But with that, we've got a couple things lined up for you in the near future. So one of the things you can expect coming up fairly soon is I'm going to do another trip out to Colorado. And this time, instead of kind of going up near the Estes Park area, we're going to go through Durango and Ouray and do a lot of hiking and a lot of just going off the beaten path, going places where EVs don't typically go. It's going to be another place where the supercharger network is a bit more sparse than others, but that's going to give us a chance to check out something cool that the state of Colorado does by putting DC fast chargers, in this case CHAdeMO and CCS chargers, at some of their state and regional parks. So we're going to check that out next month, so if you want to see that, make sure that you're subscribed. Anyway, if you like these videos, make sure you let me know by hitting that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm out, and it also motivates me to produce new content. Anyway, we're just about charged enough to make it to our next stop, so let's get unplugged and get back on the road. Welcome to Kudowa, Kentucky. Now, we actually have some experience with this station. This was the first supercharger we ever visited in our very first video to the trip to Colorado. So it looks like we're going to need to add about 30% to the pack to make it home. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this trip. I know I did. And I hope you join us next month as we go back to Colorado and go through the Rockies. There'll be some cool things that we get to do out there, including figuring out charging at a couple Airbnbs. So if you want tips on how that works, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So enjoy, and we will see you next time.